will take question and answers at the end of the session. And
Sure.
so I'll be moderating those questions for Chef. So Chef, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Okay. Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Mr. Datta, and lovely to meet all of you. You know, it's been really trying times. We are in the midst of a pandemic, and it has changed a lot of things for all of us, and it will also change the way we do business. So now coming back to the topic that we have decided for today, the traits, or what does it take to become a chef. Arjun did say that all of you are from different walks of life. You guys have a different perspective on where you want to be. You have been watching a lot of work around you. We're in a time when social media or information is so easily accessible. So it becomes even more important that we talk about this journey. So chef, who is a chef? This is a very, very important question to answer. So a chef primarily is a leader, is the general of the army, is somebody who orchestrates. So that means he orchestrates with a team. So that means he's a team player. So a chef has a few personal traits and a few traits that he has to learn as he is going along. So these traits we'll touch upon. And as we go along, I want to ask a few questions also. And at the end, Arjun is going to compile those. And let's see who answers how many right questions. So it's just for fun. And I've asked Arjun, I said, why don't we put a little, prize to that. So the first trait that we will talk about a chef should have is creativity. A chef needs to be creative. When I say creative, he has to have that eye for detail. He has to have a little sense when he is looking at presenting something. So creativity can be in many ways, and creativity, some people are born with it, and some people have to acquire it. Like I had to put in a lot of effort to get that into me. And not only just the creative bit of it, I had to put a lot of effort with many other things that are required by a chef. So some people are born with it and they are called naturally artists, and some people learn as they go along. So an artist is somebody who would put colors together, textures together, bring a lot of elements together and create a marvelous piece which we call a recipe. So this is one trait that a chef needs to have. He has to be creative and he has to be an artist. The second trait that a chef needs to have is the passion or the drive. Here again, I used to lack. I never had thought in my life that I would be a chef, but ultimately I ended up being a chef. Now I had to put in a lot of effort. My thought always was that I want to follow medicine. I want to be a surgeon. I want to, really excel in that. And as luck would have it, while we were preparing for our different entrance exams, this was one of the fun trips we went on. And eventually I got selected and I was doing my BSc honors. It was so tough, coming back from college, and I was a sportsman too. So I had to give up my sport because I was pursuing science. And after I come back from college, I had to sit and I was doing my botany honors, so herbariums, making them, drawing and all of that. It was really boring and very difficult. So when I got through hotel management, I thought, this is a good excuse to, just run away uh, from hard work and studying. So that is where I started. So I got selected and I went to hotel management school. And when I reached there, I realized that, a lot of people in my uh, group, they did not know how to cook. And I was lucky because, both my parents were working and coming back from school. And if you don't like what has been cooked, too bad. So you make something yourself. So I was cooking right from when I was in class 7. So when I reached college, I could cook dal, I could cook rice, I could make roti, and girls in my class could cook. So when I started cooking, everybody used to come to my table because what is cooking? Cooking is basically controlling heat, understanding the raw material, understanding seasoning, and application of heat. So cooking is just about this. So if you get control of all these aspects, you can cook anything. So that was the start. And being a science student, I got hold of this book in my second year, which was called The Science and Lore of Cooking. It is written by Harold Medji, and this was the first publication that had come out, and somehow it it was lying in the bookshop of the Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai, and it was at a discounted price. Salaries were very low. It was 750 rupees, and with a salary of 1250 rupees, this was a lot of money to spend. So I quickly went up, told my friends, I borrowed some money, and I bought that book. And being a science student, when I started browsing through it, boom, I realized cooking is nothing but pure science. So I started reading that, putting it into application, looking at the reactions, understanding what baking does, understanding what simmering does, understanding what steaming does. All these things, when I practically started doing, forming of emulsions, making vinaigrettes, I got a sense that, yes, it is not by chance that you do something like this. It is by practice and it is by understanding. So this is where the start of my journey was. And then I was put in a kitchen which was called at that time Modern Kitchen. It was a restaurant, the only restaurant in India which was run at the Taj Mahal Hotel, called Menage a Trois. I had never imagined cuisine to be in this form because, I had never seen or experienced anything like this. I was training in the main kitchen, and next thing, Chef Hemant Oberoi came by, said, Bakshish, tomorrow you're reporting to Menage a Trois. And I was there in that kitchen, for 3 days. I was stunned. I couldn't imagine that food can be in this form. It was so artistic. It was so well thought of. It was so beautifully presented. So all those things when I started studying, and I got to know that there is this chef called Chef Anthony Worrell Thompson, who comes to India 2 times just to do the menu. And when I looked at the menu, it was a menu which was handwritten by him. And that is what we used to present, a handwritten menu in 92, 93. And I could not really understand all of that. In his handwriting, and there were no names to dishes. The salads were called salad number 1, salad number 2, salad number 3. What do you make out of it? Fish. It was just called a trio of fish. There was no name. So then I started understanding that yes, food can have another dimension. And then I tried tried speaking to people across. I had one of my cousins in the UK. I sent a letter to him. I said, this is the chef, this is the book that he has written, and I want this book. I got that book, and that was the start of my journey into fine cuisine. And that book, I have pulled it out of my library just to show you guys. And I'm just going to quickly, it is on my table here. It's called The Small and Beautiful Cookbook. And this is the book that started it all for me. So if you get your hand on this, this was, so when you read this book, you will not be able to, put your head around it that in 92, 93, something like this was possible. And this was all, this food was all in combinations of threes, ménage à trois, meeting of the three. So if there is fish, there are three styles of cooked fish and one sauce, or one fish and three different sauces. So these were the combinations that were there, and these were global combinations. Combinations like this food was very European food, but it had influences from Thailand, influences from Japan, influences from France, influences from US, influences from me, and to start on a new journey. So this was talking about creativity, artistry, and this is what something that you will connect with and you go along. Passion, we talk of passion, passion has to come from understanding the subject. And when you start understanding the subject, and when you start relating to the subject, that is when you start enjoying it. So when you start enjoying it, then you get more passion. This is all about working in a team. So when you work in a team, being a team player becomes very, very important. A chef cannot do anything by himself because he has to work in a team. And to work in a team, first he has to gain the confidence of every team player. He has to work with them constantly. He has to master that skill. So you have to become a really good cook before you become a chef. You have to learn the basics really well. And when I say basics really well, I mean you have to practice day in, day out. Every single day, you have to learn from your cooks, because cooks are the ones who have been at it for years, who have honed that skill. So you work alongside with them, you learn and you master that skill, and then you learn how to lead a pack of cooks, and then you call the chef. So being a team player is again a very, very important trait that you must have. You have to be detail oriented. That means you have to have a very fine eye for detail, because food you eat with your eyes first. So when I say eat with your eyes first, means that the dish connects with you as soon as it is presented to you. And you have to go a step further. Why should I order a dish? That means the name has to be very, very correct, written very well. These are the mistakes that I see in a lot of menus, that people don't pay attention to how you're writing the dish, the name of the dish on the menu. I'll just give you an example. If I say a delicious red apple, so what is happening now in your mind? When I say a delicious red apple, the mic is going away. So when I say a delicious red apple, so what is coming up in your mind? You're already in your mind getting a figure of an apple. You're already imagining that when you bite into it, there's going to be a crunch. And you're already imagining that it's going to be juicy. But what happens when I give you an apple, it is looking red, but when you bite into it and it is soft, there is a disconnect. Right, Uday, red and juicy. But when you get an apple that has been in the cold store, it looks absolutely fine. But when you bite into it, it is soft. So this is the first disconnect. So when you write a dish, a guest is already imagining that dish in his mind. And when the dish comes and there is a disconnect, The dish might be tasting all right, but he's already had a disconnect. So if the dish is excellent, he will just say it is good because he's already had a disconnect. So these are small things that you have to look into. You have to get into the psyche of a guest. You yourself, you imagine and see what you look for in a restaurant when you go there. What do you like about a dish? What are the things that you like about that restaurant? So when you start analyzing this, you come to a conclusion that the correct explanation or the correct depiction or the correct representation on the menu makes a lot of difference. Whether you're putting the cooking methods there, if you say crunchy, the dish better be crunchy. you know if it if you say it, flame grilled, it should have that look and feel, and it should have that aroma. If it is not there, a lot of menus, the description of the dishes does not match the dish. So that is where you have disconnect. So you have to be very, very detail oriented. You have to be meticulous about every aspect of what you're doing. Then this is a job, or this is a, 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 a trade in which you have to stand for a long time. So that means endurance and stamina. You have to have really good stamina and endurance to be with your team, to charge your team, to lead your team. So how do you get this endurance and stamina? Unfortunately, what happens is we, the chefs community, we feed the world, but when we sit to eat, unfortunately, the kind of food we consume is not really good food. We usually end up, eating leftovers or food that is very rich, and we gobble up our food because we don't have time. So you need to structure yourself. So what happens with this erratic eating is you start putting on weight. That is why chefs are always in pictures depicted as big, bulky, with big paunch. So this all leads to a very, very unhealthy lifestyle. You become unhealthy, your stamina goes down, endurance goes down, you cannot stay focused. So these are corrections that you have to make right at the very beginning. I'll just give you a small example of how I corrected this with me and my team. I was, 6, 7 years into my job. I had put on a lot of weight from a constant 62, 63. I had started touching the 80s, 85, 90, 95, and I touched 100. I ended up with hypertension. I ended up with high triglycerides. I ended up with high cholesterol, and eventually I became a diabetic. All these problems were related to my eating and not keeping myself healthy. So as chefs, it is our duty. It is really very, very important. Please jot it down and underline it. It is super important for you to be very healthy, to lead a good team, and come up with new things day in, day out, and keep your stamina up. Then I started regulating my lifestyle. I started looking at my meals. So I was doing a break shift. So the cafeteria used to open up at 6:30, and we used to get on the shift, the dinner shift, at 7 o'clock. So 6:30, without fail, I used to take my team and we used to go to cafeteria, eat food, and if at the closing of the kitchen, if anybody is hungry, we just grab a fruit and we eat. So this changed a lot of things for me. My weight started coming down. I started feeling good. I started walking, exercising, and from 100, I started reducing again. And my hypertension was gone. My triglycerides were in check. My diabetes was under control. Everything, I could focus better. All of things improved. My stamina improved. My interaction with my team improved. We used to sit together as a team, as a family, and eat together every single day. So these are things from my journey that I can share with you, and these are the mistakes that you guys need to avoid completely. Health is very, very important. If you need to feed a guest, you need to feel healthy yourself. To think well, you have to be healthy. You have to eat well. So this is something which I promote now. I tell all the chefs that this is one part that you should correct immediately. Then we move on to something which I call giving your best. This trait comes with years of practice. There are too many distractions, but how do you stay focused? How do you give your best? So when I say give your best means whichever you are working in, you have to give your best. If you're on the store duty, you better do the stores right. So if you've got the store duty, you better do it the best. If you're on prep duty, you better shine there. If you have been asked by your chef to set up the store and the refrigerators and the deep freezers, you better be on your toes. You make sure everything is spick and span, and this is what the basics of running a good kitchen are. You have to do all of that, and you have to give it your best. And finally, when you become a chef, you get a perspective on everything. You get a perspective of every position you have worked in. You can check, you can train, you can teach your people like that. And when you teach your people, so this is a big part of a chef, to be a fantastic teacher. You have to be constantly patting your team on the back, appreciating them. There are different kinds of people. I was a very slow learner. I had to be taught things 10 times. So you have to have that skill and that patience and that ability to put a hand around somebody's shoulder who is a slow learner but a good learner, and you have to teach them over and over again, to make sure that they learn what you want them to replicate. So a chef is a leader. And when I say a leader, the leader has a lot of responsibility. But the journey of becoming a leader is what is more important for each one of you. You guys will be starting your journey now. You guys will be working in different positions. You guys will be taking care of one station is by listening, absorbing, absorbing the instructions, and then replicating them. So it is very, very important for you to catch on, to study what is it that you have been entrusted with. Ask questions, be inquisitive. You have to be inquisitive. And why you have to be inquisitive? So that you learn every single step of the process that you have been entrusted with, so that you can deliver 100%. So if you don't deliver 100%, who is going to fail? The team as a whole. Your chef will fail. So everybody has to pitch in. Everybody has to make that effort to learn every single process the way your leader wants it replicated. So it is extremely important. So I think some students taking fun. So once you go through all positions, you learn them well, and you have learned your basics right, that is the time when you come and become a chef or a leader. So when we talk of a leader or a chef, I call him the health inspector. So that's the term that I've used always, that the chef is the health inspector. And why do I use this word health inspector is because he has to look at the health of the organization or the organization he's working for, or the hotel or the restaurant that he's working for. He has to look at the health of the business. If he is not looking at the health of the business will not do well. So a chef has a much bigger role. He has to have a 360-degree approach. He has to look at every aspect. He has to run his team. He has to innovate, create new things, ensure timely delivery. So that means time management. Time management becomes extremely important for him, for her. Girls are taking active part in becoming chefs now, and I really would like to encourage more girls to come in, because at homes we see our mothers cooking, our sisters cooking all the time, and they are better multitaskers, and that is the job of a chef, to multitask. Men have to really work hard and learn how to multitask, but I think women are born with this skill set, or they are blessed with this skill set. So multitasking is also one of the parts. So health of the organization, health of his own team. When I say health of his own team, means, is the team bonding well? Is the team working in sync? Is the team following every instruction that has been given? Is the team taking care of the health of the guests? So there is so much of health that a chef has to look at. So he has to look at the health of the guest or the customer who is coming to your restaurant or to your hotel. So when you start looking at the health of your customer, obviously you have to look in. But anyways, let's go on. Ability to communicate, ability to delegate. A chef should have the ability to delegate. The team has to respect, and he has to understand that whatever instruction has been given is followed. A chef cannot do everything himself, so he has to have his team all the time lined. Everybody has to work in sync, and that is the power of delegating and getting work done in a much better and quicker way. Decision making has to be fast. A chef has to take decisions. So where do we take decisions? Decisions on what is the quality of material that we want to use, what is the kind of vendors we want to work with, decision on how do we make this sustainable. Sustainable is a big part of a chef's role. How do we promote our own farmers? How do we promote our own artisans? What is the produce that is available, within the 15-kilometer radius? How can I take advantage of that? So we have to, really, really work hard on these aspects and learn how to capitalize on them. Take decisions accordingly so that the menu shines. And you also have to look at the cost aspect. So a chef has to be very, very sensitive about cost. We were blessed in the hotels when we were working because, ingredients were in plenty. But when I moved from hotels to restaurants, it was a different ballgame altogether. So you have to work in different environments to take this kind of experiences so that you're able to become, you have to hone your skill set. You have to hone your skill set of cost sensitivity. You have to be very, very sensitive to what are the prices available in the market or what is in season. So that means you have to study the seasons well. So, when I'm talking about all these things, what has come to my mind is there are so many different things that a chef has to have in him or to inculcate in him to become successful. And this is a slow journey. You don't get to become a chef overnight. And these days, in times when information is so easily available, you Google a recipe and there it is. But what is important is to understand how this recipe needs to be recreated. What is the signature that you can put in? Have you tried it a couple of times to see the balance of spice, the balance of flavors, the textures? And this you acquire when you acquire more and more knowledge on processes, more and more knowledge on the science of cooking. So this becomes very important for you to start working on the science of cooking. Modern gastronomy. Just give me a minute here. I put the alarm for myself to keep a check on the time. So the science of cooking, you have to be very on top of it. You have to make sure that you're updating yourself regularly with what is the new technology that is coming in, what are the new processes that are being followed. Of course, traditional will remain traditional, but what is more important is that we go along and educate ourselves. We upgrade our skill set, we upgrade our knowledge and move along. And that is what is called progression. And progression is here to stay. We have to work with technology, have to work with advancement. And there is one more small little book that I had found in 2003, which again gave me another perspective, a new learning in my life. And that book also I have kept out for you guys to see. And this book is called Molecular Gastronomy by Hervé Thies. So Hervé Thies was the physicist who actually started writing about the science of food. And Harold worked with him, and eventually they wrote the book, The Science and Lore of Cooking. So these are the two books that I have been referring to for many years, and they have given me a really good perspective on what good cooking is all about and what is the science behind the processes in cooking. So with this, I would like to now conclude with the last trait that I feel a chef should have is that a chef or a leader should always remain a student. Now, this is something which we forget as we go along, as we problem. The moment you feel that you are a master, that is where your learning stops. So never stop learning. Be a student throughout your life and you will be successful. So I'm hoping this session has given you a little insight into, this is a very small session and we can't really elaborate on all the points and go deeper into it. But I'm sure the faculty that you have been working with, the chefs you've been interacting with, they would have given you a lot of perspective on each aspect that I spoke of. So it's a small session, and I'd like to conclude here. So stay a student throughout your life, and be humble, teach others. And Arjun, should we now switch over to question and answers if there is time?
Of course, Chef. And before we start that, let me just start by saying that how insightful your thoughts were and genuinely thought provoking. I must admit, no one has ever approached this with such simplicity and yet um, with great conviction. I'm sorry, but all I want to say is that we're really grateful for you, for your thoughts, and for sharing with such conviction all the ideas that you've planted with us today. I'm sure we have a lot of thoughts that will either come out right now from our students or might plant seeds for later. So students, I open the floor. If you have any questions for Chef Dean, please type them out in the chat box. I'll be happy to moderate them for you. And if you'd like to ask anything about his journey, Chef, if I may offer, if anyone wants to know.
Absolutely. I would be more than happy to.
Because I certainly do have, I must admit what you started out with sharing about how your journey was so different. And I think becoming a chef was, you see, make it look so simple, but I think it was always written that you were going to be a great chef.
No, no, Arjun, I missed a very important point here,
Sure.
which I think is very, very important for everybody to know,
Okay.
that recipes in the kitchen are like Chinese whisper, and I learned a lot from that. All the recipes that are taught to again by somebody. So
Okay.
so all the recipes that I learned in the kitchen, I realized are like Chinese whisper, because these are just verbally told to you. So my recommendation to you is that please go back to a good source and cross check and validate that recipe, and you will find there are a couple of ingredients or processes missing, or the recipe is completely different. So this has helped me a lot in my journey to learn a recipe from a chef or a cook, come back to a source, check it, and find the gaps and reinstate the recipe. So this has helped me a lot, and this I must say that you guys should do it always.
We're trying our absolute best, Chef Dean, and thank you so much for sharing that. As a matter of fact, at our institute, we follow very standardized recipes that are only either referred to from books like Larousse, Escoffier, Herrings. Books like these are the ones that we refer to, because we believe that recipes are, of course, there are endless recipes from where you can learn. But like you also mentioned, concentrating on the basics is extremely important and essential at this point. So tell us, Chef. I mean, is there any one fundamental skill or one basic skill that you believe is absolutely essential that one must always remember? Is it, whether it be your mother sauces, or whether it be you believe that understanding the combination of flavors, any one skill that you always depend on?
See, flavor combination is a skill that develops over a period of time. You don't learn it. I came from a background where I had never stepped into a five-star hotel till I was at the age of 25 or 26. I had
Okay.
never gone into a fancy restaurant or visited a hotel. So, so
Like,
I was not exposed to anything of that sort. So I had to learn that. So learning that was in the industry, in the restaurants where I worked, and in the hotels where I worked.
okay.
So and I chose a cuisine which was foreign to me. So I had to really, really look for references, because it did not come naturally to me, because I had not experienced it.
Right.
So I had to really work hard on assimilating a library over the years, which have all the really good books that I could lay my hands on. And actually, I have actually
I
taken
can
them out
see.
from my.
I can see.
I took them out specially so that I could show them. So these are just a few of the 350 books that I possess in my
My
library.
God. My God.
Yeah. So flavor combinations is
See,
extremely
so Chef,
important.
I think we have some students with. Yeah.
So let me see what has come.
Okay, so we have two questions so far. We have a question from Ravin. Chef, the critique for molecular gastronomy has been that it's just to be used as a garnish. It's expensive, not relevant today. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Thanks, Ravin, for that question.
So Ravin, I will just pick that book again. Uh, so Ravin, this book was written in the early 90s, and this is
My God.
molecular gastronomy. So don't go by this word called molecular gastronomy. I would like to call it progressive cuisine, or the science behind cooking. And this is here to stay. This is not a gimmick. This is understanding the science behind cooking and applying it. I'll just give you a small example. Understanding that an inch thick fillet of fish, how would it respond to cooking at 52 degrees, 55 degrees, 58 degrees, 60 degrees? And what is the best result you can get, or and what is the cooking method that we should use? This is what is molecular gastronomy, or this is what is cuisine, or the science of cuisine, or modern gastronomy, understanding the science. So there are a few things that people have really misunderstood this word molecular gastronomy. It is advancement in cuisine. And advancement on cuisine also leads us to creating a surprise for a guest. And how do you create a surprise? You create a surprise by altering a texture or by creating a sauce that you could have never imagined, but full of flavors, full of that basic element and taste that you want to communicate to the guest. So when you misinterpret it, yes. And that is what has been misinterpreted, that you make the garnish the main course. It is not meant to be used like this. A garnish has to remain a garnish and a surprise garnish. Like creating a soil out of oil or butter, creating airs. It's a different texture that you, but that cannot become the main course. It can be a thrill for the customer, not for your guest. So this cannot become a main course. When you start making this is go wrong. Interpreting it right, and the question is how switch to this phone. This is advancement in technology. We're not carrying that big dial phone anymore. So had we stuck to that dial phone, we wouldn't have been on. So cuisine also has to evolve. I'm seeing those changes very fast. And I've been lucky and I have invested a lot in myself. I have traveled. I have put in that effort to go out to different countries, try their cuisine, meet chefs there, interacted with them to learn. And that has been very rewarding.
So,
I hope I've answered that question.
no, I think I answered and a bit more. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so we have another question and comment from Nishta Chef. Out of thousands of dishes, how would you choose the dishes for a menu? What would be your criteria for selecting dishes, including factors of price and usual local ingredients?
Super. So a great question, Nishta. How do we choose? We choose on the basis of which part of the city we want to open a restaurant in. What is your target audience? What is their paying capacity? With that, so you have to do a good way of where you want to do or what cuisine you want to serve. You have to see the demographics there. Are there more Punjabis or are there more French people, or is it a mix of European, or is it a mix of your based on that? And then you have to go a step further and understand what are the kind of incomes they have, or what are the kind of businesses or the jobs they are in, and based on that will you fit in the price points so that you can create a business. So the chef has to look into all these aspects, because at the end of the day, creating a restaurant is creating a business. So you have to put all sense of mapping the area so that your business is successful. Hope I answered that, Nishta. A question here from Chitrat Oberoi. Chef, you talked about the disconnect between the psyche of the customer and the food that is presented being creating a gap. How do chefs or restaurateurs overcome that? Well, it's a very simple thing that you have to do. You have to get into the head of the customer. You have to see what words conjure up what image. You have to choose the right words. You can't make it overly complicated for them to understand. You don't have to use technical words there. Words. It becomes very important to use very simple words which connect very well and give you an image of the dish so that when it comes to your table, you're delighted. Because even if the dish is average and all things have matched to the imagination of the customer, he will always say the dish is excellent. Because according to his description, the dish has come, it's looking exactly like that. Then when he tastes the bite, if it says the sauce is tart, and the sauce is tart here, he will love it. And eventually, even if the dish is very average, he will say it's an excellent dish. So this is the trick of, not exactly trick, the science behind creating dishes and creating a menu. These are two different things that you have to work on parallelly so that you have successful business.
Lovely. All right, Chef. So we have one more question from Sushant. Chef, we learned various recipes from the same products. So as a chef, should we go with the recipe which is best ingredients wise or recipe which we master? Interesting question, I must say.
Yeah, Shushant, it's a very valid question. Like we've been studying mulligatawny soup right from the days of the college, but I have seen many renditions of that. So you have to take and see which is the one that you feel you love the most. And you know your customers are also going to love it. So that is the recipe that you need to master. And mastering this will be purely because you love the taste of that recipe and you are expecting that your customers also will love the taste of that recipe. So that is what you should go for. Whatever you love and you'd like to replicate for your guests, learn that recipe. So, we have a question from Uday. Uday says, Chef, which book is best and we choose for getting it for learning and keep remembering in our life? So, Uday, there are a number of books that I have with me which were fantastic and have helped me a lot. My first possession was a tiny, the smallest Larousse that you can. It was a paperback, and and that time we were students, and a hardbound was available for 1,200 rupees, and there was no way we could gather 1,200 rupees. So I've taken out the first copy that I had from my library to show you guys. It's in tatters now because of the use, but this is the Larousse that I used all my life. And now I have been gifted by my students all the new copies that have come out. So I have at least 6 editions of this book Larousse. That so Larousse is a must that you should have. There is another book called The New Professional Chef. I've taken out here books here. It's called The New Professional Chef. That is excellent for basics. So these are 2 books, and then there's the Flavor Bible to understand how to combine flavors or what are the complementary flavors. So there are 2 books: the Flavor Bible, and the Thesaurus of Flavors. So these are 2 books that I've always enjoyed. So these are books for my basics, my reference that I always use. So you guys can, you know, keep that handy for reference.
Wonderful. Well, Chef, I think, are there any other questions, students? Stanley has been deemed as a traditional chef. Chef, we have one question from Stanley.
Okay, go ahead. It's not popped up on my screen.
Okay, so what Stanley
Ah,
so Stanley
okay.
so Stanley says, Chef, molecular gastronomy has been deemed by many traditional chefs as unhealthy and unsafe due to the use of many chemicals, additives, and emulsifiers. Your thoughts, please.
Well, this has always been very in question. You have to understand what modern gastronomy or molecular gastronomy is. Whatever chemicals, so-called chemicals that are being used, these are all from a natural source. And these have been taken or isolated purely to play on different textures that you can create. And these are textures which are new, like this phone is new. Natural additives that have been isolated from plant bases to create new textures which are exciting. So, so these are not unsafe at all. Anything that you name, or I can give you clarifications on all of them, because I've been working with them since 2002. So it's been quite a long time that I've been working. So if you have anything in particular, please do let me know. But all these emulsifiers and additives are from a natural source. It is just to alter textures to create excitement.
Okay.
So
All right.
Uday says, can you share the photos of books or link? So,
Chef, I think just the cover of the book, because perhaps the image may not have been so clear. If you could share them with me, I'll share them with the students. More than happy to.
sure, sure. So I will give you a list of books that I refer to or I
That would be
love to
great.
refer to.
That would be
So
great.
you can share it with the students.
Absolutely. Chef, we have a question from Raman who says, what brands would you recommend for chemicals like sodium arginate and to create specification?
Well, it started all from Spain, but before Spain, if you look at the history, and Ferran is the person who started uh, working on it in his restaurant called El Bulli, where he and his brother, so Ferran and Adria, they work hand in hand. So they worked on all these natural emulsifiers and worked very intelligently. So, so Ferran and Albert, they're both brothers. Albert is his the younger brother. So they are businessmen. They are intelligent businessmen. So whatever they spoke of and they introduced on their menu, they worked upon, they wrote books about it, and they set up a factory to create or isolate and get these uh, additives patented, and they have their own brand. So that is the brand that I've been using right from the very beginning, and they are really very good and high quality. There are a couple of more players in Spain who have started doing that as well. I don't have the list ready with me, but I can share a list with you, Arjun, and probably you can share with the students.
Chef. All right. So, do we have any other questions? All right. No, I think that's just about it for now, at least.
Sure,
Well, Chef,
sure, great.
um, I just want to say that we're really, really grateful and thankful for you to come here. We're really honored, privileged, and I hope that we keep seeing you. I know that you're
Sure.
always working on something new and exciting, and our students are always eager to be a part of and learn from something that is great and new. So, if you feel the institute can ever be of any help, or our students can be of any help, please do let us know. It'll be an honor
Sure, sure.
to be
Absolutely.
with
Absolutely.
you.
And if students have any questions that they need clarification on,
Of
Arjun, you
course,
can you can forward that to me and I can revert on that.
I will do exactly just that, Chef. Thank you so much.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure. Lovely everybody. Thank you for
Thank you. Any
being
closing?
there and being patient and listening to what I had to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chef Dean.
Most welcome, sir.
Nice listening to you. I know
Yeah.
for a chef, there is a dream of becoming an entrepreneur, and this
Gee,
must be the most challenging.
it
Any
is.
students as to what makes a good entrepreneur from a technocrat?
So
Chef,
what make
and to become an entrepreneur, what kind of extra skill you feel were required?
sir, first to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a very big heart.
Okay,
So that's number one.
yeah,
The will to do something yourself. That is the first trait that you require.
right,
And with that will, you have to then prepare yourself because you have to learn finance, you have to learn marketing, you have to learn PR, you have to know what business you need to step in, whether you want to do a bakery confectionery or you want to do a QSR. What is your skill set, where your heart lies, and what are the opportunities available? I think once you answer all these questions, you are ready to become an entrepreneur. And how will you get your funding? Where will you get that money from to start? Whether it is your parents you rope in, your friends you rope in, or you raise the money yourself from different fund houses.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chef Dean. It was wonderful listening to you. Even I learned it today. And this hard work that goes behind it.
Correct. Absolutely. A lot of hard work.
Students, there's a lot to learn. And
Ji, Mr. Datta, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to share my journey with all the students.
Thank you, students.
And wish you good luck.
Yeah. And safe. And stay safe.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.